Sometimes when you're making a game, you need really fine-grained control over text or words within a text zone. So for example, if I wanted to dial up the font size on this zone here, this title Orc Champion, I could do that easily because it's its own text zone. But what if I wanted to change the size of Battle Raw, the ability name here, or change the color? That's a bit trickier to do. So we've actually made a way that you can do this, and it's called custom text styles or inline text styles. Inline because they are happening in the lines of the text. So they're happening inside a text zone. Let me show you how. Head up here to this little paint icon where it says Project Textiles. Click that, and that will give me a preview of whatever card I had selected at the time. I can create a new text style. There's one here by default. So I'm going to rename this here, and I want to make a keyword text, kind of like a Pokemon card might have some kind of standout keyword there. It's red, maybe it's a different font, maybe it's a bit bigger. So I'm going to make one here called ability. And as soon as I click off here, that will get created, the custom style. And by default, it has blue text. So I'm going to change that first thing. I'm going to go to the text, and the text color, I'm going to change that to red. I'm going to choose a different font. I'll go with Aladdin. I will dial up the font size a bit. Now, it's worth pointing out here that by default, the font size is set to 100. So if I type in 100, that's the same size as my other text there, even though it's a different font, so it'll be always a little bit different. But most of these styles here are actually based on a percentage of my font size. And this is so that you could have the text style somewhere else, like in this other zone up here where the font size is bigger, and it will have the same relative size, if that makes sense. So if I want it to be twice as big as the font size where it's in the zone that it's in, I'll change that to 200. So that's nice and chunky there. You can see some little previews here. You can actually type there and see. That looks pretty good for now. I actually might change it to italic as well. There we go. All right, now I'm going to save and close. But before I do that, I'd like you to note here, this little note. It says, use this text style like this, ability your text. So this is the format that you have to use it in. And so now if I save and close, I can show you how this works. So this Battle Raw, for example, you can see that I've got this text here. So I'm just going to paste in what I got from there. But instead of the word your text, I'm actually going to put the Battle Raw in there. So ability, that's the name. That's the name that I named it. And now I've got this little package that I can paste anywhere in my project. So for example, if I wanted to give that to everyone, I could put Swift Raid in here, and then I'd have the same text style applying over there. The awesome thing about this is that if later on somebody says to me, hey, that's just way too big, isn't it? That looks a bit too in your face. Maybe you should dial that down a bit. I can come up here and I can select the style and edit it all in one place. So I might just change that to 150, save and close. And now that's going to be updated everywhere it appears in my project. Okay, so now you know how to make a keyword, but how would you go about making a little container, for example? So there are some games, such as Terraforming Mars, which have a little background here. This actually means something in the game, or you'll note these two waters here have this like orangey yellow background, and it's actually containing these other icons. How would we go about creating something like that? I'm going to come to my project textiles and I'm going to create another style. And this one is going to be, I'm just going to call this trade because it's going to be a trade action. And then I'm going to give it a background color. I'm going to change the background color to black. I'm going to change the background to a light purple, maybe a bit darker than that. And I'm going to give it some padding. So padding is like the inner margin, if that makes sense. So it's like the inner space around. So you'll see here if I bump this up on the left, so 60 and about the same on the right, it's got some breathing room on each side. You'll note that if there's just a single letter, it'll look like that. And if there's more text, it'll actually grow longer. In this case, that's actually what I want. I do want to round the corners though. So I'll go to the border. I will round these corners like so. So that looks like a nice little package now. and then I will save and close. But I'm going to copy this first so I know how to use it easily. So how might we go about using this new container text style? Well, over here I have this forest wizard who has an ability that says convert 2 magic into 2 damage up to 3 times. And I want to actually make that a bit simpler and easier to read. So I'm going to put it all into one package. So I'm going to get the text style that I just made. I'm going to paste it right here. And that is trade. And at the moment it has my text, just random text inside it. So if I can type anything there, I'm now going to move this whole thing inside. By the way, you can make these bigger if you're going crazy. So I'm just going to make that bigger so I can see what I'm doing. So here we go. I've got convert something into something up to 3 times, but there's some weird formatting issue going on here. What's going on? Things aren't aligning as I would expect. What I need to do is go back to my container style, the trade one, and I need to go to the positioning tab and change the display from inline flex to inline block. Essentially, this is going to be the behavior that I want for any big container styles. I'm going to save and close that. So that's problem 1 fixed. And now I'm going to get rid of this word convert because I just don't need it anymore. And I'm going to move this up to 3 times. And I'm actually going to put it on the outside of this packet of information. And that, I think, is pretty clear. I'm actually going to just bump it down a line, maybe bump this down a line as well. That doesn't, oh, actually, I've just got all these enters down here. That's why. So now you can see that this packet is allowing me to very elegantly say this thing should be able to happen 3 times. Games like Res Arcana do this with this kind of very faded out gray background here, saying this whole packet of information does something here. Another thing that Res Arcana does is it has these icons with numbers inside them. Back in my project, you'll notice that I'm actually using these simple inline image icons here. These are the in-text icons, and these are great. And you can insert them just by clicking here and selecting this image and inserting them. But you'll notice here straight away that what I'm doing is I'm actually hard coding the numbers onto the images. So for example, this one actually has that number 1 hard coded onto it. The disadvantage of that, of course, is what do I do if the black numbers go above 3? I've got to make a new icon. Or what happens if I want an X or a question mark or something like that? Wouldn't it be great if there was a way that we could have this background, this black background, and then just put any number over the top? With inline styles, we can do exactly that. So now I'm going to make a third inline style. I'm going to open this up. I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to call this one Magic or just M because it's nice and short. I'll call it M. I'm actually going to select an image for the background this time. So I'm going to go to the image tab. I'm going to go to my folder. And I'm going to select the blank magic background image here. So you can see it's come in there behind, and there's something a little bit wrong though. It looks too small. So what do I do about that? Well, I want this icon, I actually want it to be the same size no matter what. I don't want it to grow and shrink with the text that it's in. So I'm going to go to the positioning tab and I'm going to change this to set height. Yep, it's already set height and set width. I want it to be about double the size of a single letter. So I'm going to say 200. And I want it to be essentially in a square. So, yep, that looks pretty good over here with that 1. And then I'm going to hit save and close. And I'm just going to grab this again. So now I'm going to replace this icon here. So now I should be able to just say M2. And I can now change this to any number at all, and it's going to completely be flexible. It's also easy to access these text styles. So say if I'm over here working on this Elven Archer and I can't remember what I called this or that text style, I can actually click here, click the little paint icon, like the same as this one here. So if I click here, and this actually shows, hey, I've got these different ones. I've got my ability, I've got the trade, I've got the M. So I can just say M, that will actually insert it, and then I can immediately hit the number 2, and I've got my magic icon 2 ready to go. So there you have it. You can make keywords, containers, and flexible icons all using custom inline styles. Have fun.